Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and today we will be talking about the 2024 presidential election and if Joe Biden keeps his promises. So again, some of his promises were obviously his big one was to deliver COVID relief to unite the country, and not really bring super liberal policies to light, but to be a much more progressive president than Trump and Obama. So those are her promises. So yesterday, the Senate, or actually by the time this is published, 2 days ago, the Senate will have passed that $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. So I guess that was the first step in the right direction for the Democratic Party. Obviously, 76% of Americans approved it or approved of the bill. So yeah, but this is just going to be. Actually, first I should give credit to Let's Talk Elections. He did a similar video in like 2017 or early 2018, or it was the 2020 election. If Trump keeps his promises, this is going to be where if Biden keeps his promises. So Let's Talk Elections to do this video. Probably saw it. It got a lot of views for him, I think. But yeah, so let's get started. So the safe states for Biden. I don't know why. I clicked on my mouse and it just went likely, which does not make any sense. Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Colorado, New Mexico should be safe. Maine at large in the first district, as well as Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. And also Illinois. So it's 210 safe electoral votes for Joe Biden, which is kind of his floor. Maybe he would have lost Virginia or New Mexico in a worst case scenario for him, or maybe Maine, but I think all of us know that was essentially his floor. So yeah, now Donald Trump, or not really Donald Trump. I'm used to saying Trump. He'd still have the generic Republicans still have their safe electoral votes. Of Nebraska, Utah would probably be safe. Would be close to being likely though. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, West Virginia, and that should be it. So only 75 electoral votes for the Republicans. So if it's Trump, I can see Missouri and Indiana being safe, but I'm not sure they're going to run Trump again. I think Trump might just be saying that to scare the Republican Party or pressure them into running America First candidates in 2022, populists, as opposed to just establishment figures. So, yeah, but for the likely Biden states, I think that at this point, Arizona's likely. Biden, Arizona likes moderate politicians. Obviously, Kirsten Sinema really defines that. I mean, she's kind of obstructing the Democrats' agenda. But really, this is a state that kind of they like moderates, they like independent politicians, I guess you could say. Uh, and I think that Biden being a obviously he's going to be the most progressive president for obviously maybe in history. Like if you're looking at just pure policy for his time, he is among the most progressive presidents because Obama ran a progressive campaign in 2008, but he wasn't a super progressive president. But he still is a self proclaimed moderate. So I think that Arizona would still go for Biden by maybe 5%. I could be being a little generous here, but I think that if he does keep his promises, people are going to really come out for him. Minnesota would also be likely, as would Michigan. Uh, I think both these states, I think Biden would get better black turnout from Wayne County than he did in 2020, which was still, he got great turnout from Wayne County in 2020, which is how Democrats win Michigan. They have to have high turnout from Wayne County. And I think he'd do better with the white working class, especially if the GOP runs someone like Nikki Haley, who'd do awful with the white working class. Minnesota, I just think the suburbs are swinging so far to the left that Minnesota would kind of stay where it was. So those two states would be likely for Biden. New Hampshire would be likely. It was 7 points for him in 2020. It'd probably be maybe a little more than that in 2024. And then Nebraska's second district, this is another 7 point Biden district. I think he'd do well there in 2024. So yeah, now for the likely Trump states, I think Alaska, not Arizona. I didn't mean to click on Arizona. Alaska would be likely for Trump. He probably win it by 7 to 10%. I mean, he won it by I think 10 or 11 this time. So it's really depends on who the third party candidates are. Because Alaska, they like to vote for third party candidates a lot, but whatever. I'm just as likely to be safe. Same with Montana. Montana was a state that went for Donald Trump by 16. It could have had Biden really. Obviously, he didn't make a play for it. But if Biden for some reason wanted to campaign there, Democrats have a roadmap to victory. I mean, obviously, John Tester won a 2018 Senate race there. And I think Montana politics is interesting. I think that it's a fascinating state because, as we know, they like to elect Democratic governors, send Democrats to Congress, whether it be Steve Bullock or John Tester. And then they vote for Republicans big at the presidential level. So I think if Biden did make a play for Montana, it could be even like a lean Republican state, but I don't think he's going to. It's only 4 electoral votes. It's a pretty red state, so I think that it'll just be like an 11-point Trump state. Or I keep saying Trump, but because I'm used to saying him, but I think it'd be like an 11-point red state in 2024 if Biden just keeps promises. So Kansas, I think people are sleeping on Kansas. Obviously, like if you live on Twitter, you think Kansas is going to flip in 2024. But if you live in real life, I actually had a conversation with a friend who knows a good amount about politics. This is highly anecdotal. Obviously he doesn't pay attention as much as I do. He doesn't spend his time during his free time taking county quizzes, but he knows a good amount of politics. And people assume that Kansas is just the super red state. He just in this example, he said Kansas was the reddest state in America because they asked him what he thought it was. It's actually, for those who don't know, it's actually Nebraska's. I think it's the third district. Yeah, it's the third district of Nebraska. But going back to Kansas, the suburbs are swinging hard against Trump, or against the Republican Party, Trump especially. Biden was the first Democrat in a very long time to win Riley County, Kansas, which is in more suburban Gadsden County. It's also where it's kind of like Topeka suburbs. It's also where Kansas State is, I believe, so it's a college county. But Kansas, I think it could be single digits for the Republican Party, and it could flip by the 2030s. Missouri's trending red, but I just think if Biden has enough working class appeal, he can lose the state by 11. Indiana also same thing. And I think Mississippi would also be like a 7. Mike Gaspy did a pretty good job of not raising a ton of money in 2020, but he still only lost by like 9 or 10. So I think we could see SB numbers in Mississippi for Biden because they wouldn't really campaign there. And then South Carolina will also be like a 5-point Biden state, barely likely, if he had good black turnout. No, Biden, he'll get over the edge here, as you can see. He'll win Pennsylvania by a lean margin. He'll win Wisconsin by a lean margin. He will even win Georgia by a lean margin. So I think that, and also win North Carolina by a lean margin. And I forgot about Nevada. So a lot of lean states putting Biden over the edge. So starting with Nevada, obviously incumbents always do better with Hispanics. I don't know why. They just always do. I think that Biden would improve in Clark County. Washow's trending to the left, so I think Biden would win Washoe by even more. And he'd just do maybe a little better in the rurals. Because if Trump's not the Republican nominee in 2024, I can see Biden doing better in the rurals everywhere. So I think that rural Nevada would obviously be pretty red, but it'd still come out for Biden more so than it would for someone like it would come out more for Biden against someone like Nikki Haley than someone like Donald Trump. Wisconsin, I just think the white working class will do better for Biden. He'd also, this area around here, this is kind of the Ron Kind district. This is a kind of a white working class Democrat area. They're registered Democrats, but they voted for Trump. I think Biden could flip back this area to the Democrats, and I think he'd do better in the Madison, Milwaukee suburbs. So I think he'd win Wisconsin by 3 or 4. Pennsylvania, he'd probably win it by just 5. I was considering putting it in the likely margin, in the likely category, because I think Pennsylvania's trending to the left. It really is. You can read my article about that. I think it was like a month ago. I wrote about how Pennsylvania is trending to the left. It is. And I think the Philly suburbs and the Pittsburgh suburbs would just really come out for Biden, and it wouldn't matter how well he does with the white working class. But I think he'd do well with them, better than he did in 2020 at least, and he'd win Pennsylvania by around 4 to 5% as a result. Going down to North Carolina, this would be probably just a state that the suburbs would give it to Biden, which is why I'm going to have it as lean Democrat. Georgia would be, kind of like Warnock-esque numbers. He'd win it by maybe more than Warnock because it's trending blue. It would be 4 years in the future. So I think that the Atlanta suburbs would obviously be even bluer than they were in 2020. Atlanta, he'd have a good enough black turnout to just offset even maybe Republican gains in the southern part of the state, which I don't think is going to happen, but it wouldn't matter anyways. So now for the lean Republican states, I think that Iowa and Ohio would be lean. Even if Trump ran again, they'd be like 5-point Republican states. If it was someone else, it'll be 2 to 3-point Republican states. But yeah, I think these are both states that should be toss-ups if Biden runs a populist campaign. I don't think he's going to, though, which is why they're going to be red states. But at the end of the day, we're still looking at an electorate in these states that's very white, very non-college educated, and that just does not bode well for the modern Democratic Party. If it was in the 1990s, Bill Clinton, he had appealed to the voters, sure, he can win them. Even Barack Obama. But today's Democratic Party is one that does not have appeal to white, non-college educated voters, even if they may be, liberal economically. Also, main second district will be lean. If Trump runs, it's likely. If the GOP runs like a moderate, it's probably more of a toss up. But I'll just put it as lean to be safe. Now, for the final states, I think Biden will win Texas by a tilt margin and Florida by a tilt margin. So this is a landslide, definitely. But this is only if Biden keeps his promises. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen. It's just not realistic, especially with Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema kind of obstructing his agenda in the Senate. But Texas, I just think he'd obviously do a lot better with Hispanics in the Rio Grande Valley. He'd do better in the suburbs because they're trending blue. Just have higher turnout from the Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin areas, and he'd make gains in the rural part of the state up here, Amarillo, Lubbock area. So yeah, and then Florida, Hispanics would just swing back to Biden. He'd do maybe a little better upstate because he did pretty well upstate in Florida. He just got demolished because he did horrible in Miami-Dade. Like if you give he flipped 2 counties from Hillary Clinton. He did better in a lot of other counties. Or he actually flipped 3. He flipped Pinellas, he flipped Duval, he flipped Seminole. He just did so bad Miami-Dade that he had a bad performance compared to Clinton. He'd do better in Miami-Dade, like I'm talking maybe 15 to 20 points better, and that would be enough to flip the state back into the Democratic column. So this is a pretty short video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm kind of in a rush here, so thank you for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one. Like, subscribe. Bye.